It was one of those bitterly cold winter evenings in downtown Chicago. The kind of night when the wind bites through every layer of clothing, and the streets are quieter than usual. On the corner of 5th and Madison, just outside a closed diner, sat a little girl named Emily, barely 7 years old, wrapped in a worn-out blanket that was too thin for the weather. Beside her was her mother, Laura, her eyes heavy with exhaustion and worry. Emily wasn't crying. But her pale face and sunken cheeks told a story, one of hunger. Of cold. Of a long day with no food. People passed by, some glanced, most didn't. Nobody stopped. Nobody asked. Until a man did. He was in his 60s, dressed modestly in a long brown coat. His name was Mr. Thomas Reynolds. He had just picked up 2 takeout meals from the corner bistro when he saw them sitting there. He paused, his eyes meeting Laura's for a brief moment before kneeling down in front of Emily. Without saying much, he opened the bag and handed her a warm, foil-wrapped sandwich. "Here," he said gently. "It's warm. Eat while it still is." Laura looked up, stunned and silent. Her pride fought with her desperation. But eventually, she whispered, "Thank you." Thomas smiled. "Stay warm tonight." And then he walked away. Thomas Reynolds was a retired high school teacher. He had no family left, his wife had passed away 5 years ago, and they had never had children. His days were spent volunteering at the local library, reading, and occasionally walking the streets just to feel less lonely. Every so often, when he saw someone who looked like they needed a break, he gave what he could, sometimes a sandwich, sometimes a few dollars, always without judgment. After that night, he didn't see Emily or Laura again. But they remembered him. Laura, once a receptionist, had lost her job when the company she worked for shut down during an economic downturn. With no savings and no one to turn to, she and Emily ended up homeless. But that night, when a stranger offered them food without asking for anything in return, something in her changed. It was hope. Laura vowed to get back on her feet. She started working nights at a laundromat and eventually found a small apartment in a low-income housing block. Emily was enrolled in a public school where she quickly became a standout student, sharp, kind, and full of empathy. She never forgot the man with the warm sandwich. Years passed. Emily graduated high school with honors and earned a full scholarship to a top medical college in New York. She worked hard, fueled by memories of her past, and by the idea that she wanted to become the kind of person who could offer someone else the hope she'd once received. In her final year of medical school, she began her internship at St. Mary's Medical Center. One afternoon, she was reviewing new patient intake forms when her hand froze over a name. Thomas Reynolds, admitted for evaluation, suspected brain tumor. She blinked. Could it be the same man? She scanned the chart: age, district, occupation. Retired schoolteacher. No known family. It was him. Emily rushed to the neurology ward. Her heart was pounding. She stepped into the room and saw him, older, weaker, lying in a hospital bed, his skin pale and his hair grayer than she remembered. But the kindness in his face hadn't changed. She walked to his bedside and whispered, "Mr. Reynolds." He opened his eyes slowly, confused. "My name is Emily," she said, her voice cracking. "Years ago, on a freezing night in Chicago, you gave a hungry girl and her mom a sandwich." A flicker of recognition passed over his tired eyes. "You remember that?" he whispered. "I never forgot," she said, holding back tears. "And now it's my turn to help you." From that moment on, Emily became his doctor, and something more. She arranged his treatment, helped with paperwork, and even started a small fundraiser with her classmates to cover costs not included in his insurance. She visited him daily, brought him homemade soup, and made sure he was never alone. When the hospital was ready to discharge him after surgery, she took him home. He moved into the apartment she now shared with her mother. Laura was speechless when she saw him again. She dropped to her knees and cried. If you hadn't given us that food that night, she whispered, we might not have made it. Mr. Reynolds smiled softly. I only did what anyone should do. But you too, you turned kindness into a future. Months later, when Emily graduated medical school, she invited Mr. Reynolds as her special guest. When she took the stage to give her speech, she looked directly at him in the front row. I stand here today not just because of books or grades, she said. I'm here because a stranger reminded my mother and me that we mattered. That we deserved to live, to dream, to hope. He probably thought he was just giving away a sandwich. But to us, he gave a second chance at life. The crowd gave a standing ovation. And in the front row, Thomas Reynolds, once just a quiet man walking the streets with warm meals in hand, sat with tears streaming down his face, knowing his one small act of kindness had come full circle. Kindness doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. A sandwich. A smile. A warm gesture on a cold night. That's all it takes to change someone's life. What you give today may come back to you in the most unexpected, beautiful way. Because true kindness never dies, it just finds its way home.